Hello, I'm Solange. At Christmas, my mother told me not to ruin the vibe because someone didn't like my energy. 3 days later, she asked me to cover the house taxes, again, so I stopped paying. I stopped showing up. And suddenly, the people who told me I was too much couldn't function without me. They erased me from the family video, cropped me out of the photos, replaced me at the dinner table with the man who once ghosted me. But what do you do when the people who raised you rewrite you out of their story, on purpose? Would you keep loving them quietly, or finally say something out loud? It started with a text from my cousin Rachel. Excited for Secret Santa this year. I got Uncle Ben again, LOL. I blinked at the message for a second longer than I should have, maybe because I had no idea Secret Santa had even started. Or because there was no follow-up to me, no invitation, no thread, just a casual message as if I'd been in the loop. I opened the family group chat, the one we'd used last year, nothing there since October. I scrolled up, checked again, still nothing. Then I did something that made me feel pathetic. I searched my name in iMessage. Nothing. I told myself it was probably just a delayed start this year. Maybe they hadn't gotten around to everything yet. Maybe Callista was just behind on things. She did have a full-time job, 2 kids, and a husband who treated the house like a weekend rental. Still, something itched at the back of my neck. I opened Facebook. First thing on my feed was Callista's post. Can't wait for our annual Johnson family Christmas. Food, wine, matching pajamas, and so much love. 17 likes, 5 comments, all cousins. I hadn't even known there was a plan. It was early December. Cold, but not yet brutal. The kind of weather where you still think maybe snow might be charming. I wrapped my cardigan tighter and told myself not to overreact. They probably forgot. It happens. I called Mom. She picked up on the second ring. Sweetheart, how are you? Doing okay. Just saw Rachel's text about Secret Santa. Is there a new chat or something? There was a pause, just half a beat too long. Oh, didn't Callista add you to the Christmas logistics group? I thought she did. She didn't. Another pause. I'm sure it was just a mistake. Okay. I trailed off. So, am I invited this year? Oh, honey, she said with that voice, half sympathy, half distraction. You've had such a stressful year. Maybe just take it easy, you know. Everyone will understand. That stung more than I expected. Right. Of course. Callista's hosting this year, and you know how she likes things. Structured, streamlined. We didn't want you to feel overwhelmed. Of course not. Don't take it personally. I didn't answer. Solange? I'm here. Okay. Well, love you, sweetheart. Yeah. Love you too. I hung up. And then I sat on the couch for a long while with my phone in my hand, staring at nothing in particular. I wasn't invited. I wasn't even asked. But I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I told myself it was fine. I had other things to do. Maybe they thought I was too busy. Maybe they assumed I'd say no. That night, I heated up leftover chili and folded laundry. I went about my evening like a woman who hadn't just been quietly removed from her own family's Christmas. But the next day, another post popped up. My cousin Nikki. Finally drew Aunt V in Secret Santa. Any hints on what to get the classiest lady I know? She included a screenshot from the group thread. Christmas Logistics 2023. I was not in that screenshot. I was not in that thread. I was not part of that family Christmas. That's when I knew. I hadn't been forgotten. I had been removed. Quietly. With smiles. 2 days later, Mom called again. Sweetheart, I wanted to call before you heard from anyone else. I know this is weird, but it's just easier this way. You know how Callista is about energy and flow and, well, control. It's not personal. It feels personal. It's not. It's logistical. We just want a smooth gathering this year. No stress, no surprises. I kept my voice calm. I wasn't planning to bring stress. I know, honey. You're just intense sometimes. And with everything this year? What do you mean, intense? Not in a bad way, just Big feelings. And you know how sensitive Callista's household is. Right. You understand, right? No, I said. But I accept it. There was silence on the other end. Okay, she said eventually. I knew you'd be mature about it. I was mature about it. I always am. After we hung up, I opened my photo album. Last year, Christmas, I was there, in the kitchen, stirring gravy, holding Junia while she opened her gifts. I clicked through photos one by one. I wasn't centered in any of them. In the family group shot, I was off to the left, cropped by a bad angle. My eyes half closed, my hand awkwardly mid-gesture. The year before, same thing, always there, always off to the side. I zoomed in on one image. I was laughing at something. I remember it. Dorian had dropped his wine glass, and I joked he should have stuck to soda. Everyone laughed. Except now, looking at the photo, I wasn't laughing. I was fading, a shadow on the edge of someone else's perfect frame. They liked me best when I was helping. When I paid the catering invoice. When I wrapped the gifts. When I babysat so Callista could take a nap. But the moment I wasn't convenient, I was a problem, a disruption, an energy they didn't want. I closed the album. I didn't feel angry yet, not fully, but I felt something close, like a cold front. I made everything easier, starting with my silence. For the first time in years, I didn't follow up. I didn't call. I didn't ask. I didn't offer to help. I didn't send the annual, need me to bring anything, text. I simply stopped. That silence didn't mean nothing was happening inside. It just meant I was letting the noise come from their end for once. The day after I dropped off the peanut brittle and walked away from Vera's half-open door, I stayed in bed longer than usual. It was a Saturday, overcast, quiet, and the kind of cold that made the hardwood floors feel like stone. I didn't feel the pull to do laundry or check emails. I scrolled my phone slowly, deliberately, waiting for the guilt to creep back in. It didn't. Instead, I found a message from Jenny, an old friend of mine who still worked over at the PR firm where Callista freelanced sometimes. We hadn't spoken much in recent years, but she'd always been warm, direct, no sugarcoating. She sent a simple text. Not sure if you've seen this, thought you should. There was a video attached. I hesitated. My heart picked up the pace. I opened it. The screen lit up with a blurry FaceTime screen, a casual call between Callista and Dorian, her husband. The audio was low, but clear. Callista was walking through what looked like their kitchen, holding her phone at a weird angle. Dorian was off-screen, but his voice echoed, crisp and calm. If Solange comes, the whole mood shifts, he said. Callista responded with a dry laugh. Right? Dorian says her energy is always a little off. The call ended right after that. Just a mundane exchange. No yelling, no venom. But it was like watching someone slice open your name with a butter knife, slow and casual. I replayed it 3 times. Not because I didn't believe it the first time, but because now I had proof. Proof that it wasn't all in my head, that the sidelong glances, the uncomfortable silences, the half-hearted hugs weren't just figments of my overactive mind. They talked about me like I was a problem to manage, not a person to invite. What made it worse, neither of them hesitated. No one said, that's unfair, or she's family. Just agreement, like it had been discussed before. I put the phone down and stared at the ceiling. My apartment was quiet. The type of quiet that you usually savor, but today it felt like abandonment pressed into the drywall. By the afternoon, I'd walked to the corner market, grabbed a coffee, and wandered through aisles without buying anything. I needed to move, to shake the heaviness off. When I came back home, there were no new texts, no missed calls, except one from Mom. Can you stop by tomorrow? I have something for you. No context, no warmth, just logistics. I hesitated before replying. Then I typed, sure. The next day, December 23rd, I baked. I don't know why. Maybe habit. Maybe I still believed deep down that kindness would earn me a spot back in their orbit. I made peanut brittle from scratch, the way Grandma used to do it, stirred the sugar, butter, and vanilla until it bubbled, poured it onto a wax-lined tray, and let it cool until it cracked perfectly in hand. I packed it in a red tin with a green ribbon. Then I drove to Vera's house. It was around 4 in the afternoon. light fading already. The neighborhood looked like a Christmas card, twinkling lights, wreaths, candles in windows. Her front porch was decorated, as usual, but this year there was a sign hanging above the door. Family only beyond this point. My jaw tightened. I ignored it. I rang the bell. A few seconds passed. Then the door opened halfway. Vera stood there in a maroon sweater and gold earrings, hair done, makeup precise. Her eyes flicked to the tin in my hand, then back to my face. "Oh, Solange. I wasn't expecting you. You asked me to stop by." "Oh, right. Yes. Well, listen, honey." She leaned slightly against the doorframe, not inviting me in. "I know you mean well, but please, don't ruin the vibe this year." I blinked. "Excuse me?" She gave a tired smile, like this was an inconvenience she was trying to smooth over. "Silas just got here, and you know how sensitive he is to energy." "Energy?" "He doesn't like tension. We want a peaceful evening, low stress." I looked past her into the house. The lights were dim, soft music playing inside. I saw Callista's boys running through the living room, matching sweaters, Callista holding a wine glass and smiling. So this was what low stress looked like. A Christmas without me. Because I was too much, too present, too inconvenient. I held out the tin. "I made this." "Oh, Solange." She didn't take it. "I just don't think it's a good idea." "You showing up?" "Callista has her hands full. And Dorian's been saying—" "Well, never mind what he's been saying." "Tell me." She sighed. "It's not about you. It's about harmony." "He doesn't like my energy." She didn't respond. I stepped back. My hands didn't shake. I didn't cry. "I get it. We still love you, sweetie. You just make it hard sometimes." I placed the tin gently on the porch railing. "Then I'll make it easier." I turned, walked back to my car, and drove away without checking the rearview mirror. I didn't feel rage. I felt something colder than that. Certainty. They had made a choice. And now, so would I. I wasn't vanishing. I was documenting the silence. Christmas morning started like any other Sunday for me. Quiet. Still. A little too still, if I'm being honest. There was no rush to get out of bed, no one waiting for my homemade cinnamon rolls, no laughter echoing down a hallway. I laid there a while, staring up at the ceiling, my phone face down on the nightstand like it might bite me. Eventually, I reached over and flipped it. 2 notifications blinked on. One from my bank confirming a canceled payment, the other from Facebook. I opened the Facebook one first. Callista had posted at 7:03 a.m., a full-blown Christmas collage. So proud of everyone who helped make this year's holiday magical. Grateful for our family's generosity and spirit. My breath caught in my chest. The post was full of pictures. Callista in a velvet dress, Vera next to Silas in matching red sweaters, Dorian lifting Junia up by the arms in front of the tree I helped pay for, the lighting I coordinated, the catering menu I helped Callista review over the phone 3 weeks ago, pretending like I didn't notice she'd been avoiding looking me in the eye through FaceTime. She tagged everyone, Vera, Dorian, even her old college roommate from California who came to visit. Not me. My name wasn't there. Not in the photos, not in the caption, not in the little heart emojis she sprinkled between each paragraph. You don't realize how loudly absence speaks until someone erases you in public. I scrolled through the album slowly. The fireplace was wrapped in garland I'd shipped to her last month, $89.95 from a boutique home decor store, because Callista said it had to match the sage and silver color theme. The caterer's sign in the background was from the company I Venmo'd her for when she said, "Mom doesn't want to cook this year, and we're already stretched thin." And yet, somehow, I didn't make the cut. My jaw clenched so tight I could hear the pop in my ear. I closed the app and stared at the blank wall in front of me. They hadn't just excluded me. They had replaced me. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Junia. Thanks for the big art kit. Mommy said it's from Aunt Callie, but I know you're wrapping. I froze. I knew what she meant. The silver wrapping paper with navy blue ribbon. My signature. The one I always used for her gifts. The one Junia had come to expect from me every birthday, every Christmas. I opened Callista's Instagram story. There it was. A boomerang of Junia tearing into the package, captioned, Aunt Callie delivers again. My handwriting was visible on the tag, still in cursive, still careful, still mine. I could feel my throat tighten, but I didn't let it close me up. Instead, I exhaled slowly and grabbed a pen. I sat down at my kitchen table, small, square, surrounded by mismatched chairs. The sunlight through the window hit the bills I hadn't yet opened. Next to them, I pulled out a yellow legal pad and began to write. Holiday, 2023. Garland, $89.95. Catering deposit, $250. Junia's gift, $64.79. Decorative candles, custom order, $118.50. That was just the past 3 weeks. I opened my laptop, opened a spreadsheet, made columns, started from 2018. I went line by line through old statements, mortgage top-ups, groceries I covered when Dorian was between jobs, utility bills when Mom said she was waiting for the next Social Security check. It wasn't just money. It was memory. It was time. It was emotion. And in every photo album, every thank you post, every warm toast over eggnog, I was an invisible line item. I pulled up Christmas photos from 2019. There I was, in the kitchen, stirring green beans, the only one not in heels or lipstick. In 2020, I was holding Junia on my hip while Callista posed with Vera for their annual holiday legacy shot. In 2021, I wasn't even tagged in the group photo, just a blur behind the centerpiece I helped arrange. Always there, always blurred. I looked back at the spreadsheet. I had only filled out 2 years, and already the total was over $18,000. That's when I asked myself a question I had never dared to speak aloud. What if I just stopped? Not loudly, not dramatically, just stopped. I opened my online banking portal. First, Vera's house electric bill. I clicked Manage Autopay and selected Cancel. Second, Junia's school tuition. That one stung. I hesitated, but I clicked Stop Payment. Third, the property tax reminder for the house Callista and Dorian were living in, still technically under Vera's name, but I had been covering the quarterly payments since 2018. Gone. No more quiet wiring. No more silent contribution. If they wanted a vibe without me, fine. Let them have it with their full bills, too. I wasn't going to ask them to thank me. I just wanted them to feel what it was like when I disappeared, not just from pictures or parties, but from their comfort. I reopened the spreadsheet. This wasn't a petty record. It was an archive, because one day, if they ever turned around and said, "We never asked you to do all that," I could say, "You didn't have to." My cursor hovered over the Save button. I renamed the file, Family Investments, Unpaid. And then I closed the laptop. No tears, no rage, just resolve. I had said no. For the first time, and I meant it. The moment I hit send on that message to Vera, just 4 words, not this year, something in me clicked into place. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just stillness, a new kind, like a door had shut, and I wasn't going to open it again just because someone knocked twice. That was the morning after Christmas. Portland was drenched in that gray, heavy sky the city wears like a sweater all winter. I made tea. Sat in my kitchen in silence. And for once, I didn't check my phone every 5 minutes. Around noon, I did glance at it. No reply, not even the little read notification. Fine. I stepped away from the table, grabbed the laundry basket, and moved through the motions of the day. Wash, fold, stack, vacuum, nothing special. But in every quiet corner of the apartment, I could feel it. My mind turning over a simple, unforgiving truth. It was never about whether I was loved, it was about whether I was useful. Around 4 in the afternoon, just as I was finishing up my 3rd load, a ping sounded from my phone. A new text. I wiped my hands and walked over to check it. It was from Vera. Hope you had a restful weekend, sweetie. Quick thing, can you help cover the house tax again this year? It's due next week. That was it. No. How are you? No. We missed you yesterday. Not even a polite acknowledgement that she'd cut me out of the very event she was now referencing with vague normalcy. I stared at the screen for a long time, long enough that the display went dim. I tapped it back to life. Read it again. She hadn't even pretended this time. It didn't hurt in the same way anymore. The ache was still there, sure, but now it was sharpened by clarity. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't miscommunication or family stress. This was who she was, who they all were, and who they had decided I was. Not a daughter, not a sister, not an aunt, a line item, a walking credit line. I closed the message and opened my banking app. I hadn't looked at my account closely in weeks, not since I started canceling the auto payments. But something was nagging at me now. Scrolling through the December activity, I saw a small deduction labeled Loan Payment Secure Pay. I frowned. That wasn't mine. I tapped into the details, a $72 minimum payment, scheduled monthly. Then it hit me. 3 years ago, Vera had called in tears, said she needed help co-signing a small personal loan, something about emergency plumbing in her condo and a miscommunication with the insurance company. She said it would be for 1 year, tops. She'd make every payment. I'd just be the name to get it through underwriting faster. She promised. I hadn't thought about it since. I called the bank. 30 minutes on hold, 3 security questions, and 1 very direct conversation later, the woman on the phone told me what I already suspected. Yes, Ms. Flores, she said politely. This loan is still active. Minimum payments have been made monthly from your account ending in 6118, and no one's tried to close it? There have been no requests to modify or settle the loan in full. Of course not. I thanked her and hung up. I walked to the printer, pulled out a clean sheet, and printed the statement. Another receipt for the file. Back at the table, I opened my spreadsheet, titled Family Debts, Documented. I scrolled to the bottom and added a new row. Loan, 2020. Vera. Status, active. Balance, $2,360. Paid by Solange. And then, next to it, I typed, Still on me. I sat back in my chair, looked out the window. A neighbor across the street was stringing up lights on their fence, despite Christmas being over. The wind was tugging at the cords, pulling them loose. It felt symbolic. I had spent years tying things together, making them neat, smooth, presentable. And just like that, every knot I had tightened had been undone behind my back. Not by time, by choice. I didn't feel like crying. I didn't feel like yelling, but I felt like moving. I stood, walked into my bedroom, and pulled open the bottom drawer of my dresser. There, under a stack of old calendars and postcards, was a shoebox. Inside, receipts, notes, random bits I had saved over the years for reasons I hadn't been able to name until now. A hand-scrawled IOU from Callista, dated 2019, when she borrowed $500 to cover Junia's school registration. A Venmo request she never fulfilled. Screenshots of texts asking me to just float this month's utilities. I didn't want revenge, but I wasn't going to let them rewrite the story like I hadn't been the scaffolding behind their facade. That evening, I made soup. Ate in front of the TV, some old cooking show rerun humming in the background, and then, before bed, I opened my phone again. I pulled up Vera's message, read it slowly. Hope you had a restful weekend, sweetie. Quick thing, can you help cover the house tax again this year? It's due next week. I typed a reply, thought about saying, after cutting me out of Christmas, you have the nerve to ask for money? Or, no one remembered me, but you remembered my account number? But I deleted all that and typed just 4 words. Not this year. I hit send. No emoji, no follow-up, no soft landing. I placed the phone face down on my nightstand, crawled into bed, pulled the covers to my chin, and for the first time in years, I slept through the night. I didn't threaten them, but I made it clear I wasn't invisible anymore. The morning after I replied to Vera's tax request with 4 short words, I made myself a cup of black coffee and sat in front of my laptop like I would any other Monday. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't even feel relieved. What I felt, more than anything, was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but the sort that builds over years, slow, quiet, bone deep. It was December 27th. I opened my browser and methodically began logging into each account that had, until recently, been tied to a recurring payment. I didn't rush through it. I took my time, confirming each cancellation like I was finally deleting files I'd pretended I didn't notice clogging up my hard drive. Property tax, canceled. Junia's private school tuition, disabled. Vera's electric and gas bills, removed from autopay. No explanations. No heads up. I left the systems to notify them, just like they'd left me off the Christmas invite list. I sat back, closed the laptop lid gently, and stared at the corner of my living room where the Christmas tree would have stood, if I'd bothered to put one up this year. A couple hours passed. I swept the floor, wrote 2 emails I'd been avoiding, ate an egg salad sandwich. Around 3 in the afternoon, just as I was considering taking a walk to clear my head, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lydia, an old college friend turned acquaintance. "Girl, did you see Callista's post on LinkedIn? You might want to." I clicked the link she sent. There it was. Holiday coordination this year was such a beautiful challenge. Proud to have covered costs, logistics, and food for 18 guests. Grateful to my family for trusting me with the vision. I read it again, then again. The words blurred slightly, not from tears, but from disbelief that still, somehow, managed to surprise me. I had paid the deposit for the caterer. I'd ordered the garlands, the candles, even printed the place cards Callista had forgotten to finish. And now, here she was, polishing herself for the professional world, taking credit for it all. I took a screenshot, saved it in a folder I'd renamed earlier that day. Documentation. That folder already held screenshots of texts asking me to just cover this month's groceries, Venmo receipts from Thanksgiving, and that one email from Vera back in April. I don't like to ask, but Callista's car needed repairs, and you know how they've been struggling lately. I was building my own record now, a history no one else was going to write for me. I leaned back in my chair, eyes on the ceiling. Memories started unspooling, one after the other, like a reel I'd tried for years to store in the back closet of my mind. Callista accepting that community award in 2020 for her dedication to family service. The nomination letter, written by Vera. The funding for the event, quietly donated by me. The time Vera hosted her church friends and introduced Callista as the glue that keeps us all together. I had stood in the kitchen for 2 hours that night, elbow deep in sink water, scraping casserole dishes clean. Then there was Dorian, raising his glass at Vera's 65th birthday dinner. "Here's to the women who keep this family running, my wife and my mother-in-law." I'd been standing behind them, holding the cake. People didn't applaud me because they couldn't see me, and they couldn't see me because, somewhere along the way, I'd taught them I was fine being overlooked, as long as things got done. That changed now. Not because I wanted their praise, but because I no longer accepted their erasure. I opened my laptop again. The spreadsheet I'd started, titled 2023 Contributions, was growing by the hour. I had broken it into tabs by year, listed every expense I could verify, copies of receipts, amounts, purposes. Medical copays for Silas when he fell and sprained his hip. Camp registration fees for Junia. Back-to-school shopping trips. Callista said she was too stretched to handle. I didn't add emotional labor. I didn't count the calls I'd answered when Vera cried over nothing, the errands I ran when Dorian was too busy, the weekends I gave up to babysit so Callista could get her nails done. That kind of labor was invisible by design, and I was done making myself smaller to fit the mold of a good daughter or generous sister. I opened my email and composed a new message, subject, 2023 Contributions, for reference. In the body, I wrote, "I've documented the financial contributions I've made this year to help various members of the family. This is not sent in anger, nor am I expecting reimbursement. I simply believe clarity is overdue." I paused, then added, "Just for the record." I attached the spreadsheet but didn't hit send. Not yet. Instead, I saved the draft. Later that evening, I took a walk around the block. The air was brisk, biting even, but I welcomed the chill. It kept me awake, present. As I turned onto my street, I noticed the message notification icon blinking on my phone. Not a new message, just Vera's earlier one, still unanswered. No follow-up, no apology, just silence. The same silence she'd given me after I said, "Not this year." And for once, I was grateful for it. Because now I understood something I should have realized a long time ago. They never missed me. They missed what I gave. They missed the convenience, the coverage, the cushion. But me, the person, I had always been just a ghost in the room. Not haunting anyone, just helping. I didn't raise my voice. I picked up a pen. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the soft hum of the heater clicking in and out behind me, working on my document titled "A Year of Silence." It wasn't for publishing, at least not yet. It was for me. A place to lay down the receipts they'd never thank me for and the absence they thought I wouldn't notice. I was up until nearly 2 a.m., eyes heavy but my mind racing, listing memory after memory like I was unpacking a house I never knew I'd lived in. At some point, I dozed off with the laptop still open, and when I woke up, my neck hurt and the coffee pot was still half full from the night before. I stretched, made a fresh pot, and checked my phone. December 28th, 2 days post-Christmas. A new message notification blinked from Angie, a family friend who used to go to church with Vera and still sent me holiday cards, even after she stopped inviting me to brunches. "Just got your mom's card. Thought you'd want to know." Attached was a picture of a thank you card, thick ivory cardstock. My handwriting on the return address, because I'd bought that whole damn stationery set for Vera 2 years ago at a boutique in Eugene. The note was short but cheerful. "Thank you for being part of our beautiful Christmas this year. Your presence reminded us what family really means. Love, Vera." I stared at it, then blinked. Beneath the message was Angie's caption. "Guess she forgot to include you in the family list." I wasn't surprised. I was just exhausted. I had been left out of a dinner, then a group chat, then a photo, then a public post. Now it seemed I was being surgically removed from family memory itself. And still, somehow, they expected my checkbook to show up. I put the phone down, poured my coffee, walked to the window and stared out at the street below, quiet, gray, and damp with morning rain. The bare trees looked stripped of pride, skeletal. Maybe that's what it was like to be a woman in my family who didn't play along. Not disowned, just slowly whittled away until your name stopped being said aloud. Later that afternoon, as I was folding some laundry I'd neglected the day before, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I nearly ignored it, but instinct nudged me to answer. "Hello? Solange?" His voice was like hearing the hum of a song I hadn't meant to remember. "Beaumont?" He hesitated, then chuckled like we were old friends who'd lost touch over time instead of heartbreak. "Yeah, I didn't expect to hear your voice again either. Just wanted to say, I saw your family last weekend." Christmas dinner. It was intense but elegant, I guess. I didn't respond right away. My grip on the phone tightened slightly. "They invited you?" "Yeah. Vera sent a note, said she was pulling together a quiet group, said you'd probably be out of town." I laughed. Not the kind you share with someone, the kind you let slip when something ugly finally confirms itself. Nope, I was in town, very much uninvited. He didn't apologize. Of course he didn't. "Well, it was good seeing everyone again. Even Callista, she looks the same." "Of course she does. Plastic doesn't age." "Anyway," he said, "didn't mean to stir anything. Just thought I'd say hey." "Hey," I echoed. "And now you've said it." I hung up before he could add anything else. I stood in the middle of my kitchen with the phone still warm in my hand, and for a moment, I felt 25 again. Back in that coffee shop when he told me I was too much, that I loved too loudly, felt too deeply, needed too consistently. Except I hadn't heard it from him. I'd heard it from Vera, fed into his ears behind my back, planted like a seed. And now here he was, comfortably seated at the family dinner I'd been deliberately excluded from. Smiling with the women who'd once called me dramatic for crying when he left without explanation. I opened my laptop again, pulled up the draft email I hadn't sent, scrolled to the bottom, typed one more line, invited the man you helped them destroy you over, just for optics. Then I closed it. This wasn't just negligence. This was choreography, a coordinated dismissal dressed as holiday planning. I poured a fresh glass of water, sat back down, opened a new document. Title: A Year of Silence, What They Didn't Want You to Know. I wasn't planning to post it anywhere. Not yet, but it was mine. I wrote for hours, line by line. The nights I left work early to pick Junia up from school when Callista couldn't deal. The gas money I sent Vera when she claimed Silas's social check was delayed. The dress Callista wore to Junia's piano recital that I bought under my Amazon Prime account because she said hers was maxed out again. And I wrote about that night when I was 29 and had a miscarriage alone, because I didn't tell them, because I knew they'd say it was my fault for not settling down sooner. That loss never made it into the family record either, but it lived in me, like all the other things they refused to carry. I wasn't looking for revenge, I was looking for record. The next morning, I got up before sunrise. There wasn't much sleep to rise from, but the quiet was still welcome. I sat at the kitchen table with a mug of peppermint tea and my laptop open, the glow from the screen the only light in the apartment. The folder labeled documentation was growing, but so was something else, a steady, humming awareness that things weren't just bad, they were coordinated. Around 9 a.m., I heard my phone buzz on the counter. I walked over, expecting spam or silence. Instead, it was a Facebook tag. Cassie, an old neighbor from back when I still lived near Vera, had tagged me in a comment. Thought you'd want to see this. Kinda weird without you in it. The post was public. A family album titled Johnson Family 2023. Callista's name stamped right there. I clicked on it. At first glance, it was predictable. Kids smiling with gingerbread houses. Vera and Silas standing next to the tree in those matching cable-knit sweaters Vera wore like a uniform. But as I kept scrolling, the predictability twisted. There were photos from this year, yes, but also from last year. Photos I remembered being in. Photos I knew I had posed for. And yet, I wasn't there. One group shot had a noticeable gap on the far right, like someone had been cropped out. In another, the lighting was off just enough to blur the edge, where I'd stood holding Junia, if memory served me right. I froze. Did they crop me out? I refreshed the page, hoping my mind was playing tricks. But no. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't coincidence. It was editing. Intentional. Calculated. And cruel. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voice message from Junia. Hi, Auntie. They showed a video at dinner. You weren't in it. Why? Her voice was small, unsure. A child caught in a storm she couldn't name. I didn't respond right away. I sat down on the couch and replayed her message 3 times. I didn't cry, but something inside me tightened. A thread that had held so many disappointments neatly in place began to unravel. 10 minutes later, Junia texted again. Grandma made a toast. She said not everyone knows how to hold a family together, especially people who don't have a family of their own. I gripped the phone harder than I meant to, because that wasn't just a statement. That was a scalpel. Vera knew what she was doing. She always did. It wasn't the first time she'd used my childlessness as a weapon, but this time she did it in front of friends, neighbors, guests, and my niece. As if my life was a character flaw. As if being unmarried, without children, somehow made me incapable of love, incapable of contribution. I opened my laptop and clicked on the video that had been shared with the album. It was a polished montage, clearly edited by someone with time and intention. Opening shot, Callista baking cookies with Junia. Second shot, Vera lighting candles at the table. Third, a friend of Callista's hanging garland on the staircase. No footage of me, no mention, not one single frame, even from years past. Every glimpse of my existence had been scrubbed. The kicker came at the end, during the toast. Vera stood, glass in hand, voice warm and calm. Family is the anchor that holds us when the world feels adrift. And not everyone understands that. Some people have never built a family, so they don't quite see how much it takes to keep one thriving. The room clapped. Some people nodded. I sat frozen in my chair, watching the glow on her face as she smiled, full of self-assurance and subtle cruelty. That line, "never built a family," was a dagger. I had tried. I had been engaged once, lost a pregnancy once, but those weren't things my family cared to remember. They were things they used as evidence of my insufficiency, of my otherness. I stood, walked over to my printer, and printed 5 screenshots. The cropped photo, the post, Junia's message, the album cover, Vera's quote from the toast. Then I returned to the living room and pinned them to the corkboard above my desk, right next to the spreadsheet of 5 years' worth of payments and contributions. This is what they gave me, so this is what I give back. I sat down, opened my browser, and searched for a basic video editing tool. Nothing fancy, just something that could arrange images and clips. I opened a blank project and titled it, The Invisible Daughter. That night, I began recording voiceover notes. Just sentences, phrases, things I'd always thought but never said aloud. They wanted me quiet, not absent, but they never thought about what happens when quiet people stop carrying things. They thanked each other for the Christmas I paid for, then edited me out of it. They didn't forget me, they deleted me. The next morning, I woke up early, lit a candle on the kitchen counter, and kept editing. It wasn't about exposure. Not yet. It was about reclaiming the version of the story they kept trying to erase. My version, not theirs. And if I never shared it with anyone but myself, at least it would be true. Forgiveness didn't mean silence. It meant I finally chose who gets to hear me. By New Year's Eve morning, the city outside my window was blanketed in a fog so thick I couldn't see the end of the block. The trees stood like shadows, bare-limbed and still. I liked it that way. Quiet, undefined. Something about the fog made me feel less visible. But this time, it felt like protection. When the knock came at 9:17 a.m., I wasn't expecting it. I opened the door to find no one standing there, just a small red envelope resting neatly on the mat. My name in purple crayon on the front, Auntie Solange. I knew that handwriting. I picked it up and brought it inside, sat at the table I had spent so many nights at, writing, calculating, reprocessing the same hurt over and over until I could name it clearly. Inside the card was a folded sheet of construction paper, a drawing of 2 stick figures holding hands. One had curly hair, mine. The other wore a dress with stars on it. Junia always drew herself that way. Below it, in uneven writing, I heard them say you ruined everything, but I don't think so. You always made me feel safe. I love you, Auntie. I didn't cry immediately. I held it. I touched the edges. I let the words soak through me like a warm bath after a week of cold silence. Then, without drama or breakdown, tears fell. Not bitter ones, just necessary. They weren't for what I'd lost. They were for what I'd preserved. Junia still saw me. She still knew me. That was enough. That was more than anyone else in that house had bothered to do. I made tea. I sat with that letter in my lap, one hand gently holding the edge of the page like it might float away if I wasn't careful. Then I stood up, walked to my desk, and opened my laptop. Every file I'd spent the last week organizing was there. Screenshots of payments, cropped photos, a copy of the loan balance, and all the callous thank you posts from Callista, dressed in curated humility. I opened my video software and created a new project. I typed the title slowly. The Cost of Being the Quiet Daughter. It took me hours, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted every sentence to land where it was supposed to. I recorded voiceover snippets, some in one take, others I started and stopped a dozen times. I was never the favorite. Not the beautiful one, not the charming one. I was the useful one. For 5 years, I helped hold together a family that made me feel disposable. They said I was too intense, too emotional, too much. What I was convenient. So this Christmas, I stopped funding the fantasy. And their screams started 3 days later. Each clip sat atop slides of receipts, family photos I'd been cropped out of, and moments captured without me that I had helped make happen. I didn't make the video out of spite. I made it because there was no other record. They'd deleted me from theirs, so I created one where I still existed. When it was finished, I didn't post it publicly. Not at first. I uploaded it to a private blog I'd forgotten I even had, something I used to write in when I was in my 30s, trying to make sense of dating apps and office politics. I titled the entry simply, "A Quiet Life Isn't a Life Without Value." I closed the laptop and went for a walk around the neighborhood. The streets were quiet. A few houses still had lights up, blinking half-heartedly against the fog. One front yard had a sagging, inflatable snowman, its nose slowly collapsing in on itself. I passed an elderly couple walking their golden retriever, nodded, smiled. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to make myself smaller to be polite. By the time I got back, there were already 3 comments on the blog post, then 7, then 12. By midnight, a friend texted me. "Girl, did you post this? Someone shared it in the Portland Women's Circle. Everyone's talking about it." I checked the blog again. Over 100 comments. "This is my story. I was the Solange of my family. Thank you for saying what I couldn't." I didn't reply to any of them, but I read every word. I let it sink in. I wasn't alone. I never had been. New Year's Day came with a kind of clarity I didn't expect. I woke up early, baked a small tray of ginger cookies, packed them into a reusable bag, and drove to the assisted living center downtown. A few months ago, I had met a volunteer coordinator named Nora through a friend. I had helped wrap gifts once, just for something to do. That morning, I arrived at 10 a.m. cookies in hand, a small Bluetooth speaker tucked under my arm, and a string of paper snowflakes I'd made the night before. There was no grandeur, no applause, just people. Warm, wrinkled hands that clapped when I turned on Ella Fitzgerald. Eyes that lit up when I handed them ginger cookies and called them by name. We laughed. We cried. We danced. One woman, named Shirley, pulled me into a hug and whispered, "You're the first person who's made me feel seen this season." I smiled. I let myself hold her tighter than I normally would a stranger, because that's what real family does. Not the kind who puts on matching pajamas for Instagram. Not the ones who host curated dinners with lighting budgets, but the kind who shows up when it's quiet, when no one's watching. Later that afternoon, as I sat in the car outside my apartment, the radio softly playing holiday leftovers, my phone buzzed again. Vera. I didn't answer. She didn't leave a voicemail. I went inside, kicked off my shoes, and walked over to my desk. I opened Junia's card one more time, ran my fingers along the crayon heart she'd drawn under her name. Then, with a breath that felt final but freeing, I opened the Family Contributions folder on my computer and hit delete. No backups, no archive, gone. Some stories don't need to be rewritten. They just need to end. By January 2nd, the air in Portland had thinned to something sharp and steady. Rain had washed the streets clean overnight, and the morning light coming through my kitchen blinds was soft and golden. Too gentle for the kind of wake-up I received. 14 missed calls. Vera, Callista. One number I didn't recognize, but I knew it belonged to Dorian's work phone. I didn't listen to any of the voicemails. I blocked them all. The act didn't feel dramatic. It felt practical, like hanging up on a robocall. They weren't reaching out to make amends. They wanted something. And I had finally learned the difference between access and accountability. I sipped my coffee slowly. No rush. I wasn't going to let them contaminate the quiet I'd earned. By noon, I logged into my blog out of curiosity. The post with my video had reached over 30,000 views. My inbox was flooded, not just with strangers sharing stories, but with kind, tired women who said they felt seen for the first time. One message simply said, "You said what a lot of us were too scared to." I didn't respond to most of them, not because I didn't care, but because I didn't need to prove anything anymore. I wasn't here to convince anyone of my worth. I was just done hiding it. Word spread faster than I'd anticipated. Callista's PR firm had quietly removed her from a project. Image concerns? Someone leaked in a group chat I wasn't even a part of. Vera's inner circle, the women she used to brunch with every other Sunday, stopped posting family photos with her. The silences they used to weaponize were now circling back on them. But I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just kept breathing. I went grocery shopping, took out my trash, cleaned my bathroom. The rhythm of normal life was a strange comfort. The next day, an envelope arrived, this time yellow with stars drawn in blue marker. I knew that art style anywhere. Inside was another card from Junia. Mom is mad, but I told her I want to see you again. I told her you're still my family, even if she says no. The handwriting was wobbly, but the heart was steady. I sat on the couch with that note in my hand and let the ache come without resistance. It wasn't grief this time, it was longing. A longing that didn't demand, that didn't chase. I wiped my cheeks and placed the card beside the first one. Later that evening, I received an email from Vera. Subject line, starting fresh. The tone was polished, formal. Solange, I know the past few weeks have been difficult for all of us. I've done some reflecting. I would love for us to reconnect. Perhaps we can meet for brunch this Sunday. I believe it's never too late to start over. I read it 3 times. There was no apology, no mention of the omissions. No acknowledgement of the video, the photos, the decades of silence when it wasn't convenient to have me around. Just a brunch invitation, an attempt to sweep up the ashes without asking who set the fire. I clicked reply, typed one line, "Thank you for your message. I've moved forward." And I meant it. That Sunday, while they probably gathered somewhere with curated smiles and cautious words, I took a walk through Irving Park. It was cold, but the sun was trying its best to show up. A small group sat nearby on picnic blankets, sipping from thermoses and laughing like they hadn't rehearsed it. I watched them for a minute, not with jealousy, but with recognition. That's the kind of space I wanted to create for myself. Not loud, not curated, just honest. Back home, I opened the drawer in my bedroom where I kept a small wooden keepsake box. I hadn't looked inside it since before Christmas. Inside, Junia's 2 letters, a photo of me, Vera, and Callista, Christmas 2006. We were standing in front of the old fireplace, smiling like nothing was broken. I turned the photo over and wrote on the back, "I tried." Then I placed it back into the box, shut the lid, and slid it into the drawer. Closure wasn't about burning bridges. It was about building a home on your side of the water and knowing you didn't have to cross anymore. The vibe I built didn't need their approval. It just needed to include me. Sometimes the deepest kind of freedom comes not from forgiveness, but from choosing where your energy belongs. This wasn't a story about revenge. It was about reclaiming dignity, drawing a line, and learning that silence can be louder than shouting. Have you ever been quietly erased by your own family? What did you do about it? If this story hit home, leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that speak what others are too afraid to say out loud.